They're
That's what
still
I'm
in the
saying.
minority.
Even if the worst case scenario were to happen and somehow weird fucking bullshit happened and Trump got back in office or even some place of power, or the GOP totally dominates everything and they start doing the shit that they say they're going to do, it's only going to be a matter of time before the general public says, fuck no, this is not what we want. Get the fuck out.
I don't see it happening. It sounds too conspiracy theorist for me. I don't see it happening.
I don't think it will either, but if for some reason 2024 comes around or they do come up with some fucking scheme to get Trump elected or whatever, I just think that at the end of the game, at the end of the day, because if you look back in history at fascism and trickle down on economics and all this bullshit policies that they want to do, they're not going to be popular with the American public. It's just not going to work.
Mhm.
I mean, we're seeing these abortion restrictions and how much backlash that's happening. Now they're talking about a whole fucking nationwide abortion ban and stripping away Medicare and Social Security. And the problem is the most Americans are individualistic and they're not paying attention to the news. It's not until these policies happen that people are going to go, what the fuck just happened? And then they're going to wake up and say, oh no, this is not what I thought this was going to be. I want my money back. I want to call the manager. People are
I
so
do believe they're not paying attention to what they're saying they're going to do.
right.
They're just going, oh, Republican, Republican. Well, it's not your parents' Republican Party. It's not your grandparents' Republican Party. It's a whole different animal.
But it's trying to get people to listen and understand that they really are trying to do these horrible things, because a lot of people I talk to, they're just like, are you sure? Are you,
Where are you? Because it sounds like you might be somewhere near, because where I live, I don't live near any Republicans.
Oh,
I'm in a left state, in a left-leaning county, in a left-leaning town. And my town is called a village. And we're so blue, it's ridiculous. I don't know anybody that would ever vote for anything Trump.
Oh, see, I'm in Trump territory. Matt Gaetz is my congressman.
Oh, the pedophile. Got it.
Yep. And he won his primary. So, I mean, that tells you, like, the people here, they don't listen to the news anyway. If they are Trump MAGA, they're not listening to the news. They think it's all lies anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't live around people like that. I would lose my effing mind.
Yep. I stay home a lot. I play pool, and that's the majority of my social interactions. I mean, I have some friends here who are left leaning, and I'll go and just hang out with them, but it's not a whole lot. At least not vocal about it. And it's ridiculous, because if you talk to these people, if you actually just sit down and talk to them, like, we all want the same fucking things. Like, the majority of people that I play pool with, because I play in a very, like, extremely Republican, conservative Trump area, and I've been playing up there for 2.5 years, and I'm well liked by everybody there. And when they found out I voted for Biden, they're like, you did what? You don't have green hair and, all of these things that liberals should have. And I was like,
You're
no.
too attractive to be a liberal.
So they're a little bit like, when they know somebody who's a liberal or a Democrat, then it's a little bit different, because you can't say that I'm a pedo and I'm a groomer and I'm all, me. So that shit's not work on me, that you fucking know. But they make the lies so divisive that people don't want to get to know us. They don't want to sit and have communications with us.
Realistically, a lot more. I mean, if you look at the numbers, like, oh, how did all these people vote? Republicans voted for Biden. That's just stats. I mean, they voted for Biden at the top of the ticket and then voted Republican the rest of the ticket. It's just the way it went. So you had Republicans, independents, Democrats, even military voting for Biden. Everybody wanted Trump out.
There is a Twitter account that's all about Republicans who are voting Democrat. Let me see.
You have the Lincoln Project. You have a lot of Republicans that did not want to see Trump anymore.
Right. Let's see. Republicans used to have the upper hand when it came to absentee voting, but now it's started to help Democrats. They're doing what they can to make it more difficult.
I've never voted any other way. I've only voted by mail. But California is a different bird. Like California, it's not hard to vote. In fact, I just got my books, and that's what they're books. No joke. For all my family, it all comes in the mail, and there's one sample ballot that's like a book. And then your actual ballot, I have them all sitting right here on my bed for every single one of my kids and my husband. And I don't know, they just make it so much easier. You don't have to have a medical reason or anything. You can vote by mail just because you don't like to vote any other way. It doesn't matter.
Let's see. Rolling Stone released this today. Trump plans to challenge the 2022 election starting in Philly. It's like we haven't even had the votes counted yet. One source puts it as a dress rehearsal for Trump 2024. In early September, Trump welcomed a handful of Republican allies with an urgent message. He saw a scam happening with midterm election voting in Philly and elsewhere. He wanted conservatives to do something about it. Now it's behind a paywall. I can't read it. And that's the other reason people are not reading the news, because everything is behind a paywall. Trump fixated on the Oz versus Fetterman race, which he views, as a source puts it, as a dress rehearsal for Trump 24. Let's see. In recent months, Trump has convened a series of in-person meetings and conference calls to discuss laying the groundwork to challenge the 2022 midterm election results for people familiar with the conversations. In these conversations, pro-Trump groups, attorneys, Republican Party activists, and MAGA diehards often discuss the type of scorched earth legal tactics they could deploy.
I do believe that they're going to want to make it where nobody believes in our democracy, which is part of the game plan, so that people don't vote, so they can do whatever they want. I hear you.
That is definitely a fascist tactic. You don't have faith in democracy, and you don't have faith in media, and you don't have faith in science.
Right.
So who do you believe? I alone can fix it. That's it.
And I do believe the only thing that's going to work to fight that is what's going to happen. Hopefully we don't get into a physical confrontation, but it will take people to fight up against it. People will have to come together and fight. As far as, and I'm not talking about revolution in the way of militaristic. I mean, I came from a family that fought against fascism in Denmark, and it was all underground. They got the Jews out of Denmark to the boats in the middle of the night and got them to Sweden because they were occupied by the soldiers. And that's the only way they could do it. It's going to have to be a whole different, like, we will have to go into the streets and protest and fight. But I hope I'm being clear. I mean, it's scary.
It is scary. It is, but I mean, that's honestly what it's going to have to take. But the biggest threat right now is Trump and his MAGA, people who are running for office, and all the GOP leaders that are still spouting his bullshit. Until we can get everybody in the government on the same page, we will not have a democracy that works effectively. That is what's killing us the most.
I agree. I think the indictments are going to be coming out right after January 8th. Right after. They're already going to be signed and ready to be implemented. He has way too many things on him right now, and they're just going to wait until after the election. Otherwise, they'll look like they're interfering.
I agree. I think that they are trying not to enrage the MAGA crowd or whatever by doing anything November 8th elections, but I do believe immediately after we're going to see indictments flying off the shelves.
Yep.
But here's the thing.
Said they have the emails that prove that he knew he had lost and he was still pushing the big lie. So there's your motivation, and there's your proof of, what he was thinking. Intent is the hardest part to prove. And they said they have enough now to prove his intent.
Oh, yeah. My biggest fear is that they're going to wait too long and the Republicans are going to have control and we can't stop them. They're going to try to defund the FBI or whatever the fuck they're threatening to do.
You can't say you're pro-American and then completely fight all of what American ideals are.
I agree. Let's see. This horrifying clip, Donald Trump proposes throwing reporters in the jail. Will they'll be graped until they give up their sources? That is not fascistic at all. Let's see.
All over the place, even on the Supreme Court. By the way, you have to find the leaker of the Supreme Court. You have to find the leaker. You know how you find the leaker? They'll say, oh, this is treasonous, what I said. So they can't find the leaker. He leaked all about Roe. This person leaked from the Supreme Court, never happened. You know how you find? But they don't want to mention this because I think it's so terrible. You take the writer, because you're never going to find it. They're going through phone records. It's been a long time. You take the writer and or the publisher of the paper, a certain paper, and you say, who is the leaker? National Security. And they say, we're not going to tell you. They say, it's okay, you're going to jail.
Wow. Let's jail journalists because that never has happened in fascism at all.
No, it's all insane. It's all insane.
Because they think that Trump is doing all of this to protect them, to save the country from all of these evil forces.
They don't understand what narcissism is. Trump could give a rat's ass about any single one of them. He wouldn't sit down at a table with you and split a bread.
The thing I keep asking people is when they watch these rallies, I said, why don't you just really listen to him? He only talks about himself the whole time. And then after the rallies, you never see him going and shaking hands with people and taking photos with them. He's on stage for about 1 minute and 45 seconds and then he leaves. But I see Biden going out and meeting with people and taking photos and shaking hands and doing all that stuff. Trump
and listening to stories of what their plight might be.
Trump paid to refill the SPR with his own money. Yeah.
Oh, he hasn't paid for shit. He hasn't even paid for his own lawyers. That's why they have to get lawyers want their money up front because he's known to not pay. And now his lawyers need lawyers. That's a problem.
Yeah. But again, that's all fascist tendencies. You're going to go down with him or he's going to throw you under the bus first. You're not safe with him unless you are just as cruel and vicious as him. You're his, pit bull or whatever.
I mean, he's had enough McDonald's in him. Let him just go from a heart attack. I'm over him.
Ugly, mean people, they don't die right away. Trump would never do anything unless it was money in his pocket. Yep. Hey, it's corn. I mean, it's trying to, I did a live last night and a Ukrainian woman popped in. She's in Slovenia or Slovakia or some country nearby right now. And she was like, how can I get the Russian people to understand what's happening? How do I get them to listen to the truth? And it's like, I wish I could help you with that because we can't even get people in this country to believe the truth. And we have open press. We don't have the government controlling our media like they do in Russia.
Yet.
Yeah, that will be the next thing. Because that was one of the things, if you watched Viktor Orban's speeches at CPAC, which is
right.
who they really idolize, he said you have to control the media, which is what he does. He controls the media in his country. And so think about it. All Trump had to do was tell his followers that the media was fake news. That's kind of right there. And now you have Elon Musk, I guess, buying Twitter. So, and he's probably going to get back on Twitter when that happens. So if you cannot outright shut down the media or stop it, you'll find ways like that. He'll try to find ways to buy all the other major, Facebook, Twitter.
We already had Russia propaganda being spit at us all over in 2016. And people believe that shit. I mean, my father-in-law, he believes memes. And I think it's a generational thing because, you kind of believe things that are in black and white.
Yes.
And so, he just believed all of it. And he's still a crazy nut. So only one of my in-laws or my mom, the older generation, that won't have shit when this is all done, that I will not allow to move in with me, is my father-in-law. I won't do it. But my mother-in-law, my mom, you know, I have a place for them to come and stay when they get older, because that's what's going to have to happen. And they're not going to have checks. They're not going to have Social Security. They're not going to have shit. So you better get used to the fact that your older generation, you're going to be taking care of them. And I don't mean you personally, but
I take care of them as it is. Like my mom and dad, my mom lived with me for the last 2 years before she passed away, and she was just surviving on Social Security. And trying to additional help and assistance was, I barely got anything. The VA actually gave me the most, thankfully. But if she wasn't, you know, a veteran, I don't know what I would have done. But the way that we
went through that with my uncle. My uncle was a vet, and he had MS, and he just died recently. But I'm just saying, these people are, you know, just kind of insane when they're like, oh, okay, no Social Security, no nothing. You know, the reason, you have to look back in history on why we have Social Security and why isn't it there anymore. The reason it's not there anymore, and they've sold the propaganda that it's going to be gone by the time, you know, it gets to you're the age of it, is because they've been stealing from it, and now it's time for them to pay it back, and they don't want to.
Right. Yeah, and the way that we treat low-income elderly seniors in this country is abhorrent. It's disgusting. We don't.
It's just die quickly, please. That's it. That's your only option.
And we say all of this shit about socialism and whatever, but you know, my mom is from Canada, so I still have family up there. And like when my uncle, right before he passed away, he went into an assisted living home, which was fully paid for by the government of Canada. Loved it there so much that his wife ended up moving in with him. They loved it, and all of it paid by government taxes. They didn't have to pay anything for it. Healthcare.
Yeah, my family's from Denmark, and my aunt lives right now. She doesn't pay for a roof over her head. She doesn't have to pay for any of her medical. Denmark, it's just part of, they take care of their elderly. They take care of their kids. You know, they make sure that families can get childcare and that they get the time off to be with their kids when they're young. You actually get paid to stay home for almost 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I think it's 18 months, maybe a year and a half, but you're not allowed to go to work. Like, you are paid to stay home with your kids.
Wow.
It's called actual family first. And then when those kids are ready for preschool, it's paid for all the way through college. It's part of what you pay in taxes. You don't have to think about it. And maybe they're the happiest place to live ever. I think it was the last 10, maybe Sweden won 1 year in the last 10 years. And then Denmark's come in first in the last 10 years more. I personally am, because my mom's from Denmark and I just was there in August. I'm personally looking to get my dual citizenship.
That's not a bad idea.
Just to have an option.
That's not a bad idea. I'm looking at my options right now. I'm going to enroll and go for my master's degree, because I figure if I do end up leaving this country, that the more educated I am and the more skill sets I have, hopefully it's the easier it'll be for me to leave.
It's really sad that so many Americans, because I'm an American, born and raised here. My mom wasn't. She still has a green card, but it's sad. So many Americans are like, how in the hell am I getting... The safety net is, how are we going to get the fuck out when shit hits the fan?
I was like, can I be a refugee? Can I do refugee status? Like, can I be...
Well, it's almost like The Handmaid's Tale, or the TV series where everybody's rushing to Canada. And we were in that series, we're refugees going to Canada.
We've already lost our freedoms, and
I'll go to Mexico. I'm ready. I'll go to Mexico.
On the freedom scale and the democracy scale, we've already lost almost all of our privileges, and not having access to an abortion is a human rights issue. We are, in fact, slowly going backwards into these third world countries. And it just happens so slowly. That's the problem. It's a very slow chipping away of our rights that's going to happen.
I don't know. That felt like a big chunk. It wasn't a chipping. It was like this huge chunk. I don't know. My daughters are in their 20s. I don't personally have an issue because I can't get pregnant anymore.
Right.
But my daughters are in their 20s and it's scary. The only good thing is we live in California. My daughter's going to school in New York. So I'm not super scared at this point. But when they try to make it federal, that's insanity.
Right. I was floored when I was talking to my friend about it before Roe flipped. And I said, Roe is going to go. And she's like, no, it's not. They've been saying that or whatever. I said, listen, I'm telling you, it's going to go. And she's like, well, what does it matter? You and I can't have kids anymore. And I was just like, I couldn't believe. My mouth dropped. I said, no, but my daughter can. I said, don't you have a daughter-in-law? What if she's raped someday? It only stops with you.
Right.
And she won't tell me
or
whatever, but I'm pretty sure she is.
It's so sad that people are so narcissistic in this country. And they can only think of themselves. It's, again, I hate to bring it back to Denmark, but I was talking to somebody the other day and they're like, but people don't, if you have universal health care, I don't want to pay for somebody else who's smoking or doing this or doing that. I'm like, I don't think you understand how this works. When you are on community-based healthcare, everybody cares about the community and take care of themselves better. They're riding their bikes. They're environmentally, they're safer. Everything is safer.
Right.
Here, they don't even allow American food over the border there. Forget about it. McDonald's is not the McDonald's we have here. I'll tell you that right now. They have very high standards for food and for air quality and everything. People are just healthier.
Because it's like people will say, well, we got to do something about the crime in this country. It's just getting outrageous. Well, what do we do? How do we solve the crime? Oh, well, we need more police. We need more that. We are the most policed country. We lock up more people than any other country. We have more people incarcerated. We have the most police. We have the strongest police force. Clearly, that is not the issue. The issue is poverty. Poverty is freeze.
Yes. Because you know what happens when you can't figure out how to feed your child or whatever, or your situation? If you are desperate, you will think about selling your ass or selling something that's illegal or doing something corrupt because you're desperate.
You're desperate.
That's where crime comes from. Not necessarily like graping, but the rest of it. Graping is about power. It's not about sex either.
Right. And then, of course, you have not just with that, then you have reduced health care. You have reduced mental health care. You have reduced nutrition. You have increased child abuse, domestic violence, and then you breed cycles of abuse that you end up breeding children into poverty and crime and hostility.
Constant trauma.
How do you
But
fix
we're
it?
the greatest country in the world. Give me a break. American exceptionalism at its best.
We have been sold the dream, but the dream was an illusion. It wasn't meant for us.
And then we woke up.
And now we have a country that is becoming more diverse, and we are seeing power start to slowly shift from the white majority to other people of color. And that's also another reason that people are going to these extreme measures.
Oh yeah, it's the death throes of power. They're freaking the hell out too.
They're not taking into account all of the young voters. I'm not really worried about the polls. I think we're going to do good.
I hear you. The generic ballot doesn't look good, but at the other end of it, what you just said, they're not polling people that have never voted before.
Right. We're going to have a lot of first-time voters this year. A lot of young people are going out to vote, especially because of Roe.
Right.
But it seems like the number one concern on a lot of people's minds is the economy and inflation.
I hear you, but the economy and inflation changes all the time.
But the general public, they're really fickle, and they just see the correlation of Biden being president, and the stock market or the economy not doing well or inflation not doing well. And when Trump was in office, we were doing well. That's all they think.
But were we?
Exactly. When you sit down and break it down, we were not.
But you got to break it down.
Who do not sit and break it down, which I think 80% of the population doesn't really watch the news in great detail like we do.
Right.
So they don't know what we know.
They're bumper sticker politic watchers. They want a bumper sticker so that they can know what to...
James Carville, 1992. It's about the economy, stupid.
That was for a whole different time.
True.
That was during... or Clinton was running against Bush 1, I believe, and it was a whole different time.
But do you think that it might not play as much of a role, but how large of a role do you think it plays, or do you think it plays at all, is the question.
Well, I think the media, I don't know. I guess I'm very privileged because I don't feel it in my pocketbook, because that's not how I just don't, I'm not at the point where I'm paycheck to paycheck or having to scrape up dimes anymore to pay for the eggs. It's just not the way where my life is. I don't even understand it. I just pay what's going on. I'm more concerned with what's going on. Even my stocks haven't gone down that much. They went way up. They came down a little.
Now, the stock situation, that's due to the Fed and quantitative easing. That's a separate thing from the economy. The economy, it was said in the 2016 campaign that the average household didn't have $1,500 for an expense, emergency expense. By 2020 election, that was under $1,000. On the streets, people have felt their pockets only tighten. If you own stock, bonds, mutual funds, investment capital, or any of those, what do they call those, the IRAs, you saw gains because the Fed is backing up a lot of that stock to keep the dollar value high.
I don't understand people. I hate to read the comments and comment, but we are doing much better than a lot of countries right now. This is a great time to travel. Your dollar is worth way more than other people's money. I don't understand what people say. Oh, the dollar's worth nothing. No, it's not. It's substantially doing better than other places.
I think that's a bunch of people that read the one line that said that the dollar currency is a fiat and it doesn't have a standard backing of gold or silver, and they think it's like just paper because they don't have it. They don't have it to correlate the amenities and power and things that come along with it.
And if you listen to the Republican side, they want to make it worse. They have said, we want to make it worse. We want to really crash this economy because we don't want Biden to get anything. That means worse for you. That means your pocketbook is going to get worse under that.
100.
And why do they want to do that? The question is why. I'm sorry, but every single time that fascists have worked, it's when people become desperate.
Exactly. A sense of helplessness.
Yep.
So how far do they want to go and run? They don't want to pay our bills. They want to just say we won't pay the deficit.
Here's the thing. I have never seen people in countries of democracy have protests in the streets or overthrow their government to install a fascist dictator. It's usually the other way around. You know what I'm saying?
That hurt.
You know what I'm saying? That's why aren't people understanding that?
Usually the fascist strolls in and then he's dragged out, not the other way around.
On Jon Stewart's podcast, which if you don't listen to Jon Stewart's podcast, The Problem, oh my fucking God, it is so amazing. He had an interview the other day with Steve Hanke. He served on President Reagan's Council of Economic Advisors. He was talking about inflation. Oh, what happened?
Uh-oh.
He'll be back. He's basically saying that what's causing the big cause of inflation is the money supply. He says, John says, is it a typical arc for inflation to take that starts out on commodities like oil and gas and energy sectors and then switches over to services? Steve says yes, and it was very pronounced this time because the money supply started growing when COVID hit in February of 2020. And what happened? We were all locked down, so you couldn't buy a lot of services. The stores were closed. But at any rate, that is a typical pattern. It starts with the commodities, and after you get an increase in the money supply, which we had the surplus checks and stimulus checks, and then PPP loans and all that, you have commodity prices and asset prices start going up with a lag of about 1 to 9 months. And what happened this time, the money supply starts going up in February of 2020, of course, the stock market. And by the way, Trump was president during that time. So inflation started under Trump, period.
Well, he gave out the checks. And what Biden
did
was Biden stopped people being thrown out of their homes and on the streets because they couldn't pay their mortgage or their rent. Or I guess he did rental.
Right. I mean, we have to keep people alive. Let's see what happened this time. The money supply starts going up, and of course, the stock market is booming. Oil prices went up, soybean prices, corn prices, all the grains went up. Livestock prices went up. Housing went up. Started zooming, and then we have another lag, and then all of a sudden, the real economic activity kicks in. That takes about 6 to 18 months after the sustained increase in the money supply, and then ultimately, we're talking about inflation today, which comes with a lag of about 12 to 24 months. It's very long, the lag. John says any change in the money supply or any change in interest rates is really not going to be felt for another year or two. And Steve says that's correct. And that is what throws people off. Things don't happen instantly. They look at what's going on with the money supply today, and there's a lag between that and changes in asset prices, changes in real economic activity, and ultimately changes in inflation. That's the transmission mechanism, and that's a tricky thing because of these lags that we're speaking about now. Hyperinflation. The Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank has done a couple of studies. They're a bit outdated. They looked at 110 countries and tried to see if there was a relationship between changes in the money supply and changes in inflation. And from 1960 to 1990, the relationship is 1-to-1. If you increase the money supply 1, you get an increase in the consumer price index, 110 countries. In anticipation of, we have 157 countries that we looked at from 1990 to 2021. And again, the relationship is almost perfect, 1-to-1. Increase money supply by 10%, you increase inflation by 10%. Decrease that money supply, if that should happen, and you decrease in a 1-to-1 relationship. That is the key. And so John goes on to say, the Fed has been increasing money supply since 1960, but after the 2008 financial crisis, they went into the quantitative easing period where they were just increasing money supply. They were keeping interest rates at zero. Haven't they been pumping money into this economy for many years? Inflation has only reared its head after this pandemic period. I'm wondering, is it not necessarily just money supply? Is it also the war in Ukraine, wheat prices, OPEC? Corporations have been sucking at the teat for money for a very long time. Corporate profits, greed, blah, blah, blah. And Steve says, you said inflation is global. No, inflation is not global. It's homegrown. It's always local, created by changes in the money supply in a particular central bank. For example, we have the Federal Reserve. That is the epicenter of what's happening with changes in the money supply created by the Fed and the commercial banking system in the United States. The UK, the Bank of England, determines that the European Central Bank does that. Now, let me give you 2 examples. Right now, we have inflation in the United States, 8.2%. It's a little higher in both the Eurozone and the United Kingdom. It's all 9.9 in Great Britain right now.
And a recession right now.
Here's the other thing. What's the inflation rate in Japan? It's 3%. It's not global. It's because the Bank of Japan controlling that money supply. They haven't exploded the thing like they have in the United States, Great Britain, and Europe and Switzerland. Inflation is now 3.5, or inflation is now 3.5, talking about just Switzerland. Swiss National Bank controls the thing. Of course, the winner out of the whole thing is China. China is following the quantity theory of money, They know changes in the money supply affect inflation. Their inflation in China is 2.5%.
There have been other countries that have handled the pandemic better than we did. And that's the telltale sign, is that they shut down just as much or more, but they handled the pandemic better. I would dare to say that if Trump handled the pandemic better, he might have gotten a second term.
Mm-hmm.
He had an opportunity and he squandered it.
I believe you're absolutely right on that. Because for people like myself who didn't see or really feel any of the effects and was just going about my day-to-day life, like not really paying too much attention to everything, there wasn't a huge disruption in my life until the pandemic started. Let's see, John says,
if he didn't just downplay it and make it all crazy political, he could have handled the money better.
Yeah.
He could have done a lot of things different.
Yeah,
he could have kept it out of our country like Obama did with other pandemics that were on the shores. Excuse me. I'm battling COVID right now, so I lose my breath. But I just don't understand what people don't get. I read what the Republicans want to do right now, and we want to go full board with policies that will hurt Americans.
And unfortunately, it's going to take them actually doing that and hurting people to the point that people will revolt against them for them to actually stand up and give a fuck. Because if it doesn't affect you personally right now, you don't give a fuck. That's just how the general public is, not us or you. I'm just saying in general.
No.
That's how a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, well, abortion, whatever.
I know, they're me, myself, and I. That's all I ever hear. Well, I don't care. It doesn't affect me.
Yep.
And so, I'm not going to vote for the community of America. It's all about me. It drives me nuts.
And that's what's separate. It's a psychological thing, though. They have done studies, and if you are somebody who is more individualistic and you're more concerned about you and your immediate self, then you're more likely to vote conservative. If you're somebody who's compassionate, empathetic, sympathetic, and you care about others and you want equality for people, you're going to be more liberal. And they know that. And so they play off of those things when they do talking points to people.
Right.
They've done studies on that. So if they did a study trying to get liberals to vote to encourage military spending, and the way they proposed it was by putting more money into the military, it will help out the people who are in the military. It will give them more access to better health care, child care, education, and it will improve their life from that standpoint. And people were more likely as liberals to say, that makes sense, I'll vote for military spending. Whereas people who were on the right, they just said, we need a big, strong military where it's all about America first. We need the best, strongest military in the country to defend this patriotic, wonderful country. And that's all they need to hear. They know exactly their target audience and how to talk to people. Even the GOP politicians that misspell tweets and put stupid shit out there, they're rage farming because they know that's going to get interaction with people. Like, I blame us for making Marjorie Taylor Greene a fucking household name. Nobody fucking knew who she was until she started saying all this shit and we gave her all this attention. Now she's about to be fucking running mate with fucking orange dumpstickle because...
Do you really think he's going to run again? He's not going to run again.
If he has
not. No, you know why I say no? It's because he's a narcissist. And he's already lost once. And his narcissistic little pea brain can't handle it. And he won't. He won't run again.
If he won't lose if he runs again.
Oh, yeah, he would.
No,
the same people that came out and put him down the last time will put him down again.
Matter. That doesn't matter. He will make sure he wins, is what I'm saying.
Well, he'll cheat and steal and whatever, but I hear what you're saying. But he's not going. He tried that last time.
He didn't have enough people in the right spots, but he's getting more and more of his MAGA fucking followers to go in. And I think they said that they've got